Now, Israeli airstrikes pounding Gaza, tanks at the border ready to move in. Same sort of thing we saw 4 years ago. So how does this Gaza offensive compare with the one back in 2008? I asked Mideast expert Aaron David Miller a short time ago. Aaron, what are the chances that there will, in fact, be a ceasefire anytime soon, and then I guess after that some kind of lasting truce?
Well, I think the odds that this will enter a kind of interim phase, as happened in the wake of Castlet 0809, I think are pretty good. Nobody wants, the Israelis do not want a ground incursion. I think Hamas understands the limitations and the constraints that they're going to be under if the Israelis move in. The Egyptians clearly don't want them to go in, the Turks and the Americans. So I think if there's enough time, and if the Israelis provide enough time and space for whatever diplomacy's in the works to succeed, I think there's a reasonable chance. Beyond that, John, I think it's much more complex. If you wanted something more than we got out of 08 or 09, and I would argue there are 3 or 4 things that would need to be in place if you really did want to have this be not just a mowing the grass episode. Number one, you really would have to get the Egyptians to own shutting down the tunnels, at least as far as the importation of parts and equipment with respect to high-trajectory weapons. Number two, you'd have to close down the tunnels but open up Gaza. You really do have to create a reasonable economic horizon for the 1.5 million Palestinians that are there, which will place additional pressure on Hamas to further moderate its agenda. 3, you'd have to find a way to unite what is now Noah's Ark, that is to say the Palestinian national movement, in which there are literally 2 of everything, 2 constitutions, 2 presidents, 2 polities, 2 sets of security services, so that you literally have 1 gun, 1 authority, and 1 negotiating position. And finally, you need to test whether or not you have a government and a prime minister in Israel that is willing and able to enter into a serious negotiation with the Palestinians. Unless you get those elements into place, a year from now, you and I are going to be sitting here having the same conversation.
I was going to say, that's a very, very high bar that you're looking at there. One thing that Hamas is now demanding is for any kind of ceasefire is for Israel to end the blockade of Gaza. That just doesn't seem likely. And the Egyptians, who are Hamas's best friends, they're not even opening up the border. So why would Israel?
Well, you remember in the wake of the Mavi Marmara affair, the Turkish flotilla, that one of the upshots of that really was to loosen, to some degree, importations of foodstuffs. And there was a significant relaxation. That's tightened and toughened up now. But you're right. I think Hamas needs to extract, since they're watching their depositories of high trajectory weapons, the Fajrs, be reduced by Israeli airstrikes. And if there's a ground incursion, they're going to reduce them even more. Hamas is going to need something in order to agree to this ceasefire. And I suspect it will be, at a minimum, pressing the Egyptians to press the Israelis to open up the Rafah crossing, which would allow at least the importation of foodstuffs, with the Israelis supplying electricity to Gaza as they do, through the other crossings. They need that, and they need some sort of assurance that the Israelis are going to stop targeting senior Hamas operatives. I don't think they'll get the latter, but some movement on ending restrictions, I think they may actually get. Very
quickly, Aaron, the role that Egypt is playing in this, it seems to be the traditional role, at least from a distance, that Hosni Mubarak, the former Egyptian president, once played. So it seems a bit odd to me that they've stepped into that role. Do you believe that the new president, Morsi, is actually genuinely carrying out negotiations here? He's in a pretty tough spot.
I don't think it's his inclination, but they have bigger priorities, John. I mean, they've, $4.5 billion IMF loan. They want American support. They don't want to attach, Morsi does not want to attach his future to a volatile, to the religious manifestation of Palestinian nationalism, Hamas. He knows the jihadis that are operating in Sinai and in Gaza do not have Egyptian interests in mind. So, no, I think he'd like to see this quiet down. Plus, remember, he can now demonstrate that Egypt is back and that Egypt has a central role to play in matters of confrontation and negotiation. So, no, I think it is in his interest to do this. The question is whether he can get the sun, the moon, and the stars all aligned to make it happen within a reasonable period of time.
Okay. Aaron, thank you so much. Aaron David Miller.
Always a pleasure.